All right, well, the next video we're going to watch today is titled Star Citizen, The Illusion of Rarity from the Space Coder. And in the thumbnail is the Idris. So I assume he's going to be talking about like this artificial rarity created by CIG that doesn't really exist in the game. But we'll see. I'm kind of curious what he has to say here. I have felt this way for a while, but I always kind of understood their and was like sort of okay with their decision making around selling things like this. But let's see where Space Coder's coming from.
Hello citizens and welcome back. In today's video I want to talk about ship availability and rarity and how this system doesn't really work. As always, if you like this video, sacrifice a like and a comment to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. And here's a shout out to our amazing patrons for their support of the channel and the armory. If you would like to join their ranks, check out my Patreon.
Bro, Sli-Fi is a patron on every YouTube channel I've ever watched. It's crazy. Sli-Fi is such a G. He is supporting so many people in the Star Citizen community.
Or consider becoming a channel member. So, some of you might be asking, Coder, what the heck are you talking about? Well, have you noticed how some ships have limited sales? Most are limited by time, but some ships are limited by numbers sold with each sale. During major sale events like Invictus, there's always a big show, with certain ships being made available in limited numbers in several waves. Now,
things like the 890 jump, things like the Idris, it's all just like FOMO marketing. Yeah, that's all it really is. But at the same time, I don't think that was always the intention. I think this comes across as like an issue with the original Kickstarter and things like the Vandal Scythe, stuff like that, right? Like, we are only selling a few hundred of these, and that's it. We're never selling any more. And, like, remember when they said they weren't going to sell the F8 Lightning, and then they did? It just cost $10,000. You know what I mean? Things like that. Like, we're never going to sell these things, and it creates this artificial scarcity that doesn't exist. But they always communicated this, and I was always sort of okay with it, was the idea of like, well, the ship is meant to be rare in the game, so we don't want to sell more. Like, they're basing the sales numbers off of maybe the number of citizens that they have, or maybe active players or whatever. And the argument for continuing and doing additional sales of what players originally thought was a one-time chance of getting these things is that, well, we have a lot more citizens now and we want them to have an opportunity to get them. And because we have a lot more citizens, we want that ship to fill in the gap that we feel it belongs in rarity in the game, right? So that's really kind of the decision making they are going across, of like, well, we have 3 million citizens now, so we can afford to give up a few more 890 jumps or Idrises or javelins. That was always their argument, and I was always okay with that. I didn't really ever have an issue with that. What I have an issue with is them just generally selling endgame content, right? Like, I always had a problem with it, period. But the fact that they would sell more after already selling them to others was kind of the part that I was a little bit less, I thought was less problematic. I don't think that people that joined the game in 2015 should have something that people that joined in 2020 and are willing to, give up a number of dollars to support the project should have anything different, right? What I would love to see specifically is in-game only earnable ships. And you could set whatever price you want on them, but in-game only would be fantastic.
So there is a legitimate balance-related reason behind this. However, it is slowly being negated with the repeated use of the sales strategy. The official explanation from CIG is that they want to ensure that some ships are present in diverse and very limited numbers. This generally depends on the specific ship, but for example, it would make very little sense in terms of lore if there were a few thousand javelins flying around. But it's not possible for CIG to set a hard limit on how many can be sold, because that would be detrimental to the funding. Also, as far as I know, the javelin is only available for sale twice a year and in very limited numbers. We don't know what the exact number of available javelins for sale is, but I can tell you that I know quite a few people that own a javelin, and I'm pretty sure you do too. The javelin is of course just one example. The Kraken and the Endeavor are in a similar situation. So what's so bad about this? Well, CIG justify the cost of these ships by saying that they are extremely rare and create quite an advantage for the owner. But by selling them, they're actively destroying that rarity. On the other hand, this false rarity combined with the fear of missing out and very high pressure limited sale events creates an amazing sales opportunity and no doubt generates a lot of revenue for the project. So what
about the free javelin for referrals? How many people have enough referrals to have a javelin? There's a handful of them. That's like not an argument at all.
the solution? Well, there really isn't one. You could limit the sales to concept release sale and then flight ready release sale. But it's too late for that. The balance is gone and implementing this restriction moving forward would be unfair. And you can't just cut off a major source of income. You could limit the available numbers even further, but this only slows down the issue and would ultimately result in even more sales pressure. But now it's important to consider the in-game implications. We know that operating capital ships will be an expensive affair, from crew costs to repair and docking fees. Most capital ships will probably become money sinks, with a few exceptions like the Orion, Endeavor, and carriers like the Liberator. And this actually offers a double-edged sword that could be considered a solution. The operating...
It could, but again, we don't exactly know yet, and especially when, you know, CIG is taking claim timers and repair costs and adjusting them all over the place, getting players angry. When they get angry, they fall back on it. Will it be? You know, that's kind of the question now is will it ever be a problem to fly one of these ships, or are we still going to see a similar experience to what we see in Star Citizen today, where you're just going to see, you're going to scan a Javelin and it's going to have one life sign on it?
Costs of rare capital ships might exclude some owners from being able to use them, which in theory fixes the negating of advantage that these ships are supposed to provide by making them less rare. But at the same time, in-game measures locking out someone from using something they paid for is not great.
No, like we've discussed like licensing on this channel over the last few years or many years of like, sure, you can buy the ship, but you're not allowed to fly it without a license, like Gran Turismo style or something like that. That's not a good solution, I don't think, at all, right? So it's these scenarios where the only thing that can kind of hold a player back is this is endgame content, right? Like in reality, what would players have, you know, think of Star Citizen in 2012. What would players have worked towards in a group, in a guild or an Oregon Star Citizen, right? They would have worked towards the Javelin, and that would have been their, you know, base of operations kind of thing. They would have worked towards an Idris. That would have been what they're doing. And now, because they've sold so many of these things, there's a whole nother problem on top of it. And that problem is what? What do orgs work towards now? What thing will we take the Javelin out to continue playing with? Like, what goals will they have? Are we going to have to build space stations? Are we going to have to buy space stations in the game? Like, you've taken the endgame content, technically what we thought would be endgame content for Star Citizen, and sold it to thousands of people. So what do those people do now? What does everyone do now? What are the end game large reaching goals? Now it is a sandbox, obviously, so everybody's goals will be slightly different. But I imagine orgs like Test Squadron or orgs like I don't know, name a large org here, will have some like lofty goals of trying to do something really big and cool. What will that look like? Because the Javelin's kind of out of the question now, because like Space Coder said, there's probably someone in your org that owns one. So you already have one, you know? And now it's like, what do we do now? Is kind of what it's taken away.
Obviously, many, if not most people who own these ships plan on using them with their org or to rent them out to other players or organizations. However, there is one fatal flaw in this reasoning. It assumes that this will be possible. Now, this feature was discussed many times and somewhat confirmed by CIG, but as with everything, timelines are uncertain and designs might change.
Yeah.
And with that being said, that's it for tonight. What do you think? Should CIG stop selling rare ships or should they stop pretending that they are rare? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.
I think that they'll just keep doing what they're doing. Should they? It's too late. It's too late. So I think the solution to the problem is creating a larger and unfortunately bigger scope to the game to make those ships useful to start earning or reaching towards something else, right? And that's where the game kind of, unfortunately, gets larger and larger and larger and just never comes out, right? And if they sell another capital size ship, then what, right? Like it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah, so they have to create content to use those things. And that's sort of the problem.